Kia ora everybody, welcome to our Strategy and Policy Committee hui this morning. Good to have you all here. I will start our hui off with the karakia. He honere, he kororia ki te atua, he mangarongo ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa. Hanga i te atua ngā kāhau ki roto ki tēnā mātou. Whakatongi a tō wairua tapu, hei awhina hei tōtou i a mātou, i tēnei wā, i tēnei hui, āmene. Welcome to councillors, staff and public and members of the public. Council and standing committee meetings are live streamed on the council's website and YouTube channel. Public gallery attendees' presence implies your consent to being broadcast. Please remember to ensure cell phones are set to silence. Further information about live streaming protocols can be found on the council's website. Health and safety. In the case of an emergency, following the building wardens to the nearest exit, the meeting point is across the road over at Peace Park. Bathroom facilities are located opposite the chamber foyer entrance. Next, apologies. So we have an apology for early departure from Councillor Morgan. Are there any other further apologies? I ask for a mover. Councillor Imick, seconder. Councillor James. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Are there any acknowledgements or tributes? Yes, Councillor James.
I'd just like to acknowledge the standard address of the Rangatahi councillors and that, trying to keep the standard of council up here. So, well done, guys.
Yes, very dashing. Thank you. Any conflicts of interest? No conflicts of interest. Okay. Today we have no public participation or presenters, so we'll move on to the confirmation of minutes. The confirmation of minutes, we will be including the PX minutes unless anyone has any comments or corrections that they need for the PX minutes. Are there any corrections required for the confirmation of the previous minutes for Strategy and Policy Committee and the PX minutes? No? I call for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Hanlon, Councillor Morgan. All those in favour? Thank you. Community board minutes. Any questions or clarification for the community board minutes? Oh, we received them all. Oh, sorry, it's a separate. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Happy to move. Seconder. Councillor Imick. That the minutes for the following Whakatane District Council Community Board meetings be received from the Murupara Community Board, Taniatua Community Board, Whakatane Ohope Community Board and Ngataiki Community Board. All those in favour? Thank you. Reports. So we have the reports for the Draft Annual Plan 2026-27 Update Report. Thank you. Morena.
Morning. Thank you for having us this morning. So we're here to talk about the update to the annual plan, where it is at so far. So to provide you with context on what's been achieved to date, on 5 March we presented options to Council to approve the draft budget. So staff identified an equivalent of 1.7% of rates revenue, so that's roughly 1.35 million in cost reductions. The decision from Council was to maintain an average of 9.4% of rates increase for the 26 and 27 and applying 1% to the operating deficit and the remaining to be put into a managed contingency fund. and so that would manage any unforeseen economic shocks, as some of the cost reductions would be associated through, that we found were associated through inflationary adjustments. It's important to note that the decision that was made on the 5 March was made prior to the fuel crisis and the beginning of the current geopolitical situation. And so the decision also noted that any additional funds in that contingency fund at the end of the 27 financial year would be put toward the operating deficit. These cost reductions that we identified on 5 March came from the reduction of the operational budget, the capital budget, the anticipation of the bill rates mentioned in terms of inflation adjustments, and then as well the inclusion of removing a total of 19 FTE. So that was made up of planned roles and current vacancies that we have. As well, there was the addition of 3 FTE for legal, finance and waters. So this paper also, you'll see, also addresses the addition of 2 further FTE within the waters transition into the IBU. But it's important to note that all the water roles are loan funded, and so they will have a minimal impact on rates. So the focus for today is around the additional cost reductions. So from the meeting on 5 March, staff have identified the additional equivalent of 0.9% rates revenue, so that's about $711,000. Therefore, the purpose we want to is to seek direction from the council, from the Strategy and Policy Committee, and how they would like staff to utilise these additional sort of cost reductions ahead of the annual plan adoption. So where these additional savings came from, they were found through the additional waste budget from the long-term plan that was identified as no longer required, and that was continued adjustment through debt servicing of the capital projects and the additional projects that may occur as mentioned in this paper. Staff are anticipating a further work to come from reviewing the capital budget, but it's anticipated that this should not have a significant reduction in rates. So there could be further reductions to rates, though, however, through the waste disposal levy. However, that needs to wait for deliberations on the 10th of June, as well as then a decision on that itself. So our recommendation from staff is that given the current environment, it would be best to put toward, the additional cost savings towards the contingency fund, and subsequently on the operating deficit at the end of the financial year of 2027. We have already seen since 5 March that, as again, the contingency fund is already under pressure due to the ongoing energy crisis. And so the pressure associated with those costs are going to continue even if the war was to end tomorrow, just because of the lag input on prices, as well as their ongoing anticipated increases in the costs. We haven't seen the bulk of these yet, so that's important to note. So therefore, prioritising the contingency fund, every effort that's made towards saving of the contingency fund in the 27 year would be put onto the reducing the operating deficit, and that has the flow-on effects to future rates as well. So this occurs due to the reduction in, in required borrowing costs to pay against interest in future years of the deficit. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Inviting questions. Yes, Councillor Isles, and then Councillor Amick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You've highlighted in your report here that this was put together prior to the international fuel crisis that we're facing now. And we've also got families that are confronted with rising costs who have got possibly no avenue of looking for additional income. So I do not accept that the 0.9% savings be put into a contingency fund. I'd like to see it come off rates.
Question?
Exactly that.
That was, so no further question?
No further question.
Thank you. Councillor Amick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. I've got a couple of questions, if that's all right, Elliot. I'm on page 13, and I'm looking at the budget analysis, and I just wanted to check that the bullet points that are included there is how we're saving that 0.9, because I'm not quite sure it says and require an additional 372 okay, loan funding provision for the hangar development and or Bono Otawhaiki wharf replacement. So is that the money we're saving, or is that going to be additional funds that we're going to need somewhere else down the line?
Through the chair, the top 3 points under that paragraph are where the savings is coming from, which is the solid waste costs, the leased revenue, and then a rephasing of some of our capital. That is additional capital expenditure, which is factored into that 0.9, the hangar development and the wharf replacement. So the 0.9 is the net impact.
Okay, so we don't need to find additional funds for that. Okay, and the supplementary? And then if I move through to the advantages page, the 5.1 on page 15. So if we were just to, looking at option 2, reduce the operating deficit with that 700,000, what does that save us on our loan repayments?
Have to come back on a precise number.
Would it be like, I know that we've had, if we save $1 million, if we've got $1 million, it might save $5 million on our loan deficit. Is it kind of a similar?
A rule of thumb is somewhere between 2 to 3 times, but
Yes.
it's a very loose rule of thumb. On a 10-year loan, it'd be approximately twice that amount. But
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
How much of a agreed contingency fund have we already used?
to date, it's a new fund to come into effect from July, so we haven't used anything of it yet. I think the important point is that the implications coming through from the fuel crisis we haven't seen largely, and that's because a lot of the contractors' claims will come through based on the updated indices which come through every quarter. So the March 31 didn't have very much impact. The June will have an impact. I think Reserve Bank yesterday forecast inflation now at 4.2%, and the commentary sort of indicated they expect that to be for a 12-month period now. So, it's. I think what we tried to reflect in the report is that it won't be easy to manage to hold that contingency fund complete, because there will be pressure because of those externalities.
Thank you.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 13, I just want to re-look at the questions that Councillor Emmett brought up. The hangar development and the wharf replacement, it says in there for the hangar development that there is some money left over from development budget, but that we'd need another 372,000 to provide for it. Is that right?
Yeah,
So you've allowed for that in the budget?
So in the final capital forecast, which will come to you on the 25th of June for adoption, it will include all of the updated rephasing of capital. At the moment, we don't anticipate that there will be a significant movement from that 51 million that we put up. So there'll be some movement in terms of the actual projects, because we're looking at rephasing those. And it's mentioned in the report, but we talk about a different approach and not using a carry forward approach as strongly as we have in the past. And the reason for that is because each time we do a carry forward, it only puts projects out 1 year, and it just pushes the number too high. So what we've gone back to the business is to say rephase this over the next 2 to 3 years to get a more realistic number, and have a much lower carry forward when we come to June. The long and the short of that will be is that those numbers will be included approximately in that 51 million for next year.
So is that what you mean on page 14, where it talks about under 4.5, where it talks about the approach intended is to reduce reliance on future carry forwards by redistributing project funding. So that doesn't mean that if a project doesn't go ahead, you're going to replace it with another project.
No,
Because if we're doing that, we could actually reduce our capex by a bit, But
no, this is about timing of our capital program and trying to actually align it with what we can deliver.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have next Councillor Whittaker, then will be Councillor James and Councillor Hamill.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, I'm like my colleague next to me. I would be voting for option 1. I think we've got to show some leadership, and if we can drop it down 0.9% on the rates, then I think we're showing we're actually working towards giving some relief to our ratepayers who are going to need it.
Just seeing if you have a question, councillor. Do you have a question?
Oh, no, I don't.
So that was more of a comment. Thank you. If we could leave the comments for yes, for debate, that'd be great, and just question
okay.
time at the moment. Thank you. Councillor James.
Yeah, good morning. Both the contingency fund and getting the operating deficit down is going to save a rate increase or some increase next year. And we've got to be thinking further ahead than just the 12 months we're in, because this is going to go on for a while. And in the past, council's been great at trying to keep the rates down today, but we're not thinking about tomorrow. But so, can you just explain, am I right in thinking that both of them would have a saving for next year's annual plan, and also which one would be the greater savings for? Are we better off in the contingency fund or get the operating deficit down?
The best scenario is that we don't use any of the contingency fund, and that is all applied to the operational deficit next year. That's the best scenario. We are recognising that there will be some pressure to do that. Every dollar that we spend out of the contingency fund will negatively impact on bringing that balanced budget down. So it's really important that we manage that fund to keep it intact as much as possible. So so the answer is put all the money to the balanced budget, including the contingency fund, but recognising the risks around that. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Hamill.
Thank you. Thank you to staff for finding some further cost savings. Just for people potentially watching in public, can you just give us an update on if we did opt to put these savings into further into the contingency fund, what would be our current projection be where we would get back to a balanced budget, so get our operational deficit under control?
That's a good question. So at the moment we're forecast to get back by 2029. If that 0.9% isn't spent through the year, it's roughly $2 million a year, so it'll part way through 28, 29. It'll bring that through.
And a supplementary, if I may. For me, it's a question of how much contingency do we need, and we've got contingency in all our capital projects. I know that, but I guess it's a case of how long is a piece of string. Do you think that there's a high likelihood that that we would use all this contingency, or would you be the staff would be doing the utmost to not use it?
Absolutely the latter. But I think it's a recognition of the level of externalities that we are actually facing, which is significantly more than the normal. When we put the annual plan together, the first draft of the original application of the contingency fund, we had it there because we recognised that there was uncertainty around inflation. That was normal uncertainty around inflation. Since then, obviously international events has meant that I guess the certainty has dropped. The certainty has increased in some ways, but unfortunately, certainty has gone the wrong way. Whilst every effort will be maintained to actually manage that as strictly and strongly as we can, we will need to be working with contractors, suppliers, in order to do that throughout the year. So I honestly wouldn't be able to, in terms of is it the right amount of money? It's a really hard question to answer. What I would say is anything unspent will roll into the next year. So that rate saving, if we can achieve it, will apply in the following year and carry through.
Can I have one more question?
Yes.
Are we preempting, thank you for that, are we preempting the decision on the waste levy funding, seeing as it's not coming to us until June? We're making an assumption that 500k.
Yeah, no, this is different to the actual waste levy consultation. That's around using what's it called, the reserve,
Curbside recycling.
the waste levy fund, effectively to apply to the rate. This is actually a saving within the activity.
Right. Thank you. That's good to clarify. So we've got another
come.
potential saving coming
That's
in the future. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dennis, and then we will have Mayor Nandor. And I'd also like to check to see if Councillor Aranui was interested in having a question.
Thank you. If we go back to the May the 7th finance meeting where we talked on page 192 that our operating deficit, OPEX deficit was 22.2 million. If we put that 0.9% off the deficit for this coming year, if we're spending that much extra a year over and top of what we're bringing in with rates and dividends, derivatives and all that, and we take that off, does that mean the following year we'd still be spending 22.2 million extra, or does that mean that from there on you drop your expenditure?
Yeah, so any savings we look to carry forward the following year, so it's down to that bring that number in. Depending on what it was, if it's a one-off saving, it's different.
So on that same page, we talked about the CapEx sort of balanced out that deficit of 22 million back to 8 million because we had unspent CapEx. If we're going to reshuffle the CapEx to reshuffle the projects so we're only borrowing what we need and phase those in a better way, does that mean that the offset to the 22 million will drop and so the deficit will go up?
Look, I would need to reconcile all that to bring back to you, but no. They're two separate things in large ways. Like the capital funding, we're actually excluding out of our balanced budget calculation, because the balanced budget calculation is effectively saying our operational revenue should cover our operational expenditure, effective in there. The flow-on impact of capital flows through to operational expenditure, so those elements are included. But all of the things that are included in that 22 million are things like capital grants and things which we take out of that balanced budget calculation because they shouldn't be included in terms of ensuring that we're covering our operations. So they're distinct things, but what we're saying in this report is that we're looking at rephasing our capital program to show a different level of delivery. But that, and the flow on to balanced budget will occur, but only in terms of the operational expenditure that flows on from that, not the actual capital money itself.
Thank you.
Mayor Nandor.
Thank you. Thanks for this report, and like my colleague, thank you for the, finding additional savings. I know the organisation is working really hard to look at where we can cut costs. And also just to emphasise the point about that the impacts of the fuel crisis haven't come through. I was at a talk at Local Government New Zealand and they said that they were saying that very thing, that the impacts hadn't come through, and also that even if everything was sorted out tomorrow, it would be at least till Christmas that things actually started to stabilise. So thank you for the forward thinking on this. My question is, I've got some real sympathy for my colleagues who would like to see us drop rates, because I agree that people are struggling in our communities. My concern is that if we were to use these savings to reduce rates, in the reasonable likelihood that costs increase and over, from what's currently projected, that the way we would have to deal with that is essentially increase our operating deficit in the future, right? We would essentially be borrowing money to pay for our operating costs. And so we would make it, the timeline for getting back into a balanced budget is going to be further away, and it's going to increase rates demands on our community next year and in the future. That's really...
It's a really good summary. If we get a good tailwind behind us and we don't use that contingency, then we'll track well. If, as we think we will use some of that up, every dollar that the rates comes down now puts more pressure on that deficit as well. So, yes.
Thank you. I was just checking, Councillor Morgan, if you had any questions.
Sorry, the ones that I wanted to ask have already been sort of
Thank you.
asked.
Yes. Councillor O'Brien.
I'm interested in the Awakeri wharf replacement. Is that part of the flood wall integration upgrade? Can we tap into that funding, or is that something different again?
No, it's just coming to the end of its life over the next few years, so it needs to be replaced.
Right, supplementary, if I may. Thank you. So that's to replace part of the, to upgrade that, to accommodate the berths that are there. So my question is, are we getting returns from those berths per annum to warrant us upgrading them, or is it better for us just to not have those berths at all?
The answer to the first part, no, and that will be part of the decision that will come to you, the elected members, to make. So we'll present the business case and then the options of what route you want to go down.
All right, thank you.
Cool.
Councillor Emmett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just following on for Councillor O'Brien, and if the decision was made to continue with upgrading the wharf, that would come out of the infamous harbour fund, wouldn't it?
There's always that option. Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other further questions, Deputy Mayors? Thank you. Oh, yes.
Thank you. No, I've got comments in the debate.
Thank you, everybody. I will move forward to put forward the motions that, sorry, call for a mover and a seconder. I'll take them one at a time. So I'll read them as first one, that the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the draft annual plan 2026-2027 update report. Councillor Isles moves, seconder. Councillor Hamill seconds. All those in favour? Resolution 2, that the Strategy and Policy Committee note that within the draft annual plan 2026-27, that 2 additional loan-funded FTE roles since March 5th draft budget have been included within the Waters activities, ensuring successful transition into an internal business unit and minimal impact on rates. 2, that additional costs reductions have been identified equivalent to 0.9% of the average rates revenue. And thank you. All those in favour? Remember, any against? Thank you. And the next resolution, that the Strategy and Policy Committee directs staff to apply additional cost reductions equivalent to 0.9% of average rates revenue to be managed to the Managed Contingency Fund in the draft annual plan 2026-27 budget to ensure Council is best placed to respond to continued cost and inflation uncertainties. Mover, Deputy Mayor, and Mayor Nandor, seconder. Debate. Deputy Mayor,
Happy to kick off why I have moved that. I just think that it's, with these unknown costs that we know are going to hit us, I just think it's prudent to actually have a contingency fund. I actually see it as a win-win because anything that isn't used can then be applied to the operating deficit, which I agree we do need to be reducing as quickly as we can, in particular before rates capping hits us. So that's why I'm supporting the recommended option of number 3.
yes, Councillor Isles, and then Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. As I've already indicated, I won't be supporting it. As already been reported, the fuel costs are yet to come through. Households are facing increased costs. Inflation's on the rise, interest rates are on the rise. I think if there's any way this council can help alleviate some of the pain for our households, we should be applying that to a rate reduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James.
While I'd prefer to support it going into the operating deficit, it's the second best option for us, so I will support it. I don't agree with my colleagues that we need to be looking after, well, to me it's more important that we look after the ratepayer next year, not this year, and all the inflation increases and the fuel increases, everything haven't started yet. They're coming in, we've already been told that they probably won't show until the end of the year. Like Mayor Tanzos said, down in Wellington at the rural and provincial and that, both foodstuffs and Z Energy said that increased costs probably you won't see them this year, but you'll see them certainly from the new year on. So I think we've got to be looking further ahead than just a year we're in for the good of our ratepayers. Giving them a rate reduction this year certainly isn't going to be helping them in 12 months' time. So,
interest rates and inflation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor James. Councillor Mick.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm actually not going to be voting for the contingency fund. I'm focused on decreasing our operating deficit. I feel like it's our real responsibility after the staff have worked really hard to find some more savings for us, that the sooner that we can lower the operating deficit, it's got a longer term benefit for the ratepayers going forward. I do have sympathy with the current environment for all of those who are struggling in the community, because there's a lot more coming down the line. But I think our first responsibility is to lower the deficit that we got ourselves into.
So can you just clarify that you are supporting the contingency?
No.
No. Thank you. Any other comments for debate? Yes, Councillor Hamill.
I agree with Councillor Mink. I wrestle with this one. I know we've got a contingency set aside. I feel, however, that we need to demonstrate more urgency in paying off our operational deficit. Ever since I've been elected, I've been hearing that we need to get our ship in order, and I think we need to focus on that with the future of rates capping and uncertainties ahead. So we still, as I understand it, we still have some contingency. It may not be enough, but I think our focus should be on getting our balanced budget, and I think for me, that is what good governance would be in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor O'Brien. And then Councillor Dennis, is that correct?
You know, as much as I like to see our rates drop, just like everybody else, I do believe that reducing the operating deficit is where we need to head. That's because I have every faith in our kaimahi that they'll find some more money for our funding deficit, for our funding contingency plan. So I don't support that. I do support option 2.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will not be supporting it. I believe that we should go for option 1 and reduce the rates for the people. The people out there are really hurting at the moment. And thanks to the staff's hard work, we've already produced 1.7% savings before we did this last one, and that's gone off the deficit, and we've had some created contingency fund. I think the people need a bit of relief, and so my feeling is that with a $22 million overspend on OPEX, I think there's a bigger picture, and I'm a bit disappointed we haven't started on this one, is that we really need to look seriously at how to reduce that sooner. But at the moment, I believe that people need rates relief, so I believe we need to do that, but then go into bigger cost-cutting exercise for the next LTP. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your views and direction on where you'll be. We need Jesse's view. Sorry, Jesse. Councillor Morgan, continue.
It's a big one that I've been sort of struggling with too. You're torn between our ratepayers and then, trying to get the deficit down as well. It's a real hard one for me at the moment. But I think I'll go along with Councillor Hamill and Leslie on supporting the.
Thank you. Just checking, Councillor Whittaker, would you like to do your comment now?
Yeah, well, as I said, and I agree with a lot of my other colleagues, that I think it's great the council has found this 0.9%, and possibly there's a bit more savings to be found somewhere. So I won't be supporting the option. I'll be going for option 1. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I also have some comments in regards to this resolution. Similar to my colleagues, I will also not be supporting the resolution. I congratulate our staff on being able to find those savings and the mahi that you're doing. I believe that we're on the precipice where we have room to be able to do a lot more activity in preparing ourselves for what is coming, even with what's coming with the fuel cost crisis, but we are really going to have tough times when it comes to the rates capping, and there won't be room. Everything will be getting pushed down the road. If we're able to help pay off some of that road now, and being able to put that money down on debt, hopefully that will have a bigger return when we are scrabbling to be able to see what it is that we have to be harsher on at the time of the rate, when the rates capping arrives. So I see the benefit of that being used now to provide some relief to our ratepayers while we can, and to the deficits that we have in our debt. So I will. Oh, sorry. Aroha mai, Nandor.
Actually, I have a question of procedure, if I can, and also then a debate to contribution as well to be made. My question is, if this motion fails, then how do we proceed? Because we've got votes split across 3 different options, and I don't think there's a clear majority at this stage for any of them.
We were just talking about that in the background through the chair.
We asked what option.
I think what we need to do first is vote on the motion for the paper. It looks to us as though you may be able to reach a majority on one of the other 2 options. So I think the next step would be to we've heard the preferences, and to seek someone from, I think it's option 2, which is the next favoured, to put a motion for an amended resolution and see if we can get that one across the line.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Okay, I'll make a contribution then. I'll be voting, well, I've seconded, and we'll be voting for option 3, which is to apply this money to the contingency. I do have a great deal of sympathy for those who want to apply this money to the rates and to shave something off the rates increase that was projected in the LTP. My concern is that it's a bit of a sleight of hand for our communities, because what we do is we give them $1 with one hand and we take $2 out of their pocket with the other hand. The impact of instant rates relief now is actually going to be a bigger rates burden in the future. So while I appreciate the sentiment, I think it's kind of, in a way, it's tricking our community to think they're better off than what they are. So I don't support doing that. I also have a lot of agreement with those who think we should apply against the operating deficit. That's been a real focus for me all through this annual plan, has been to how we can reduce the operating deficit, because that just locks in rates increases for the future. It puts us in it's just fiscally imprudent for this council to maintain an operating deficit. And so I think we have to get rid of that as soon as possible. But having said that, I am really concerned about escalating cost, the way that's going to impact us. And so I do think that a contingency fund is the best way to go. And then, as has been said, anything that isn't spent from that will be applied to the operating deficit. So that's the ultimate. And I do have like others, I have a lot of faith in our staff to continue to keep costs down. And so my hope would be that there is a significant amount to put against the operating deficit in the wash-up. If this motion fails, then my second option would be to go for the operating deficit, because I also think if we apply it against the operating deficit and then kind of take it back off the operating deficit in the future, we kind of aren't materially different. So I think that's a viable way forward as well. So that's me.
Thank you, and thank you for the procedural. We will vote on this. Oh, sorry.
Just as the mover, I think I get to have two bites at the cherry. So in one last ditched effort to try to sway people, which I can imagine will be unsuccessful, but one has to try. I support everything that Mayor Nandor has just said, and that while I also want to be reducing that operating deficit as fast as we can, if we don't have enough in our contingency fund, I will allow the GM to correct me, but we could actually be adding to the operating deficit instead of reducing it if we don't have enough budgeted for.
If I may, through the chair, that's correct, and I think the Mayor summarised it well, as in the sense that if it's applied to the operating deficit and we spend that money, it just comes back off that anyway. So that's exactly correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't saying something that was factually incorrect. I know we don't usually have staff commenting, so thank you, Chair, for allowing that. So yes, I think it could be, a little bit not prudent to actually not have a sufficient contingency fund. So that was all. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
That's 2. All those against? Did you get that? Motion has failed. Did you want your votes recorded? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I would like to ask, actually, if in the next step, whether or not Councillor Hamill, if you would consider putting forward a resolution motion to support option 2 of.
Yes, I'm happy to move option 2.
And second by Councillor O'Brien. Any debate? All those in favour?
Aye.
Show of hands. Everyone? All those against? Anyone is abstaining?
Against Andrew, Gavin and...
No.
Motion has passed. Thank you, Whānau. And thank you, Paul and team, for your mahi.
Madam Chair, I just want to make a comment. Despite the differences and all that, I just think the main point is that the staff have tried really hard to bring costs down, and we really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Agree. Thank you very much. Just checking to see if we'll be okay to break early before we get into the regional spatial plan. How's everybody with that? And if we break now and then come back at 10? Okay, thank you. Oh, so some people want to keep going till 10, or do you want to break now? Keep going. Okay then, thank you. We have the regional spatial plan. My screen's gone. Morena, Nicholas.
Tēnā koutou katoa. My paper relates directly to the resource management reforms. So the Resource Management Act has been replaced by the Planning Bill and the Natural Environment Bill. Council made submissions on those earlier this year. They're currently with Select Committee. We're expecting them to be enacted sometime between June and September, probably closer to September. The dates we hear keep getting pushed out a little, but certainly before the House rises for the election. And one of the submission points we made was around the timeframes for implementation of the new plans under this and under the planning bill. And I refer to figure 1 of my report, which shows really the centrality of the regional spatial plan in the new planning framework. And I think it's really important to have in mind that the regional spatial plan isn't just a series of maps, it's actually the key direction setting document for the region. It will set out where growth occurs, infrastructure corridors, how we manage natural hazards. It will have objectives and policies. It's actually a key policy document that will set the direction for the region for the next 30 years, so it's long term. Our new district plan, which will be called a land use plan, will essentially be implementing what the spatial plan says. So the spatial plan is a really, really important document. It will cover the full region, but it is central to the whole planning framework. We won't be able to have a land use plan or a future district plan that is substantially different from the direction set in the spatial plan. So one of our key submission points that we made earlier this year was around the timeframes. Under the planning bill, we've got 15 months to have the spatial plan implemented from enactment. So that's like having a spatial plan ready by August next year from today. That's not long. Our Eastern Bay of Plenty spatial plan we developed over 3 years. So to do one in 15 months is that's really tight. Now in the Bay of Plenty we are fortunate that we do essentially have spatial plans that cover the whole region. They were developed not under the RMA, they're essentially non-statutory documents, but they were endorsed through a process under the Local Government Act. The new spatial plan will be a statutory document, so it needs to go through the process set out in the Future Planning Act. But 15 months is a very, very short time frame. I know of other councils made the same submission point, however, we can't guarantee that that's going to change substantially. It might get pushed out a bit, or it might not. So my paper is really around the work that has started in the Bay of Plenty region already, because there is a lot of work going on where the councils are getting together and starting to talk about how we work together on the spatial plan, how we develop it. So we're essentially what's called the pre-enactment phase. That means the legislation hasn't been enacted yet, but we know it's coming, and so it's really about getting in a position where, to borrow a rugby analogy, we're hitting the ground running, hitting the ball running rather than from a standing start. So it's about getting that momentum underway. And so that work has been getting underway, and essentially since the mayoral forum late last year, where they endorsed Bay of Plenty being regional council as a secretariat to help organise, get us organised and develop a program plan for this pre-enactment phase, so that we're ready to go and in a really good place when the planning bill's enacted. So yes, we are well placed in the region with those three. Smart growth is a very mature spatial plan. It's been under for 20 years. Rotorua have their future development strategy, which is essentially a spatial plan. We've got the Eastern Bay of Plenty spatial plan, but those weren't developed under the Planning Act and the requirements of the Planning Act. So there will be additional requirements in there that we will need to incorporate into our district plan. Yes, some of it might be bolting together what we've already got, and I don't think that we'll see a substantially different direction, but there are additional components to consider. And as I said, we'll have objectives and policies, so it's actually a more substantive planning document than simply the three spatial plans bolted together. So my report discusses the pre-enactment program and the work that is underway. The councils, as I said, are all working together already to try and look at how we work together, what a process agreement could look like, and that process agreement really sets out how we work together. But we're using existing structures, existing committees, existing forums that involve collaboration amongst the different councils to work out how we work together once we're in the new era. Once we are in the new era, there will be a spatial planning committee, which will be made up of representatives of the different councils. We're not setting it up yet, but that is something that will come out through the process agreement. So what I might do is leave it there, if I can, and take questions. The program is set out in the report, so I might just let you ask questions if we may.
Questions and clarification, Councillor Imick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you very much for getting us to this point. And while it might seem that it's taking us quite a while to get to this point, it feels like we're in a really good position. And my question is, and thanks, there's no financial consideration for this because I see Regional Council are providing the program management. Is there a way that, considering the other wider discussions we've got going with Waters entity, potential Eastern Bay unitary or wider, is there a way that we could promote ourselves to government to be a pilot region to get some of this all fast-tracked and funded? I'm not sure who that should go to.
So I can answer some of it, but there might have others that have no more than I do. What I do know is that through the mayoral forum, a letter was, and it's referred to in the report, a letter was recently sent to Chris Bishop, sending out how we're working together and basically saying, we're getting underway now. Is this the right approach? We did get a response back yesterday. It came through. It didn't really say either way. I mean, it commended us on getting underway early, but obviously you can't give us too much direction while the planning bill is going through the select committee process. Yes.
Just to add to that, and thanks, and through you, Chair, what the letter did say was to make sure that we're taking advantage of the opportunities that come with the new national direction, and that's something we're really focused on. So things like the NES for Papakainga and NPS for infrastructure, there is a slight shift away from the precautionary approach within the RMA to a proportionate type approach when it comes to consideration, and that will feed into the work we're doing. And I know it doesn't necessarily answer the full question. I don't know if David had something to add.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I mean, it's a classic of, where we're at with the timing of the indications, because the planning bill indicates the regional spatial plan has to be across the Bay of Plenty region. But of course, all these other conversations give you different mixes of what might happen across the Bay of Plenty. So at the moment, our only option is to work regionally across the Bay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further questions of clarification or clarification? I have a question. It's similar to Councillor Emick in terms of us being able to utilise the spatial plan as some form of foundation for where we're heading for, or maybe heading to, in terms of amalgamation. Oh, we can't. Okay, sorry. I was just, it was really just a question. I can note in there that as part of the work program task, you have our iwi and other stakeholders. What has been their feedback on the work so far?
So a lot of the work so far, I mean, hasn't gone out for engagement. There is a hui coming up in early June with the Māori policy teams from the different councils across the region to look at how we engage and what that looks like. Obviously, the legislation will say what it says, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's all we can do. So what I can say is that conversations are underway, getting the various people from different councils in the room and looking at how we undertake that. I'd also note that within the Whakatane district, I mean, all our growth areas have a substantial amount of land that is Māori freehold land under trust, and so we are doing a lot of engagement with them. So obviously, whatever we do, however it ends up coming out, there's a really important component for working with iwi and land trusts in hapu in that space. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. I will put the motion forward. Do I have a mover? Councillor James, seconder. Councillor Emick. That the Strategy and Policy Committee receive the Regional Spatial Plan Update Report, and that the Strategy and Policy Committee endorse the Bay Plenty Spatial Planning Program approach. Is there any debate? Mayor Nandor.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the team for the work that you're doing on this. It's really important work, and it's great to see that you've got it underway and in hand, and that and as you said, we're very fortunate that we've, in the region, got a head start, that we've got all these sub-regional plans to work with. So just thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate? All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Any abstained? Thank you. Motion is passed. We will now break for our morning tea. Thank you for 15 minutes till 10:15. Thank you. to another episode of the Strategy and Policy Committee. We are now going to go through the adoption of the local growth strategy plan. And good to have you again, Nicholas. Thank you. Stan. Dan. Aloha
It happens all the
mai.
time, don't worry, it happens. So, Morena, thank you for that, and thank you for Nicholas for presenting his paper just then. And in my paper, what I've tried to do here is tie in the importance of the local growth strategy into the work that we're doing around the regional spatial plan, but also then what follows this is the Awakeri structure plan, which Stephen will be presenting, and then I'm going to try to tie all three in. If I'm not doing a good enough job, just make sure you interrupt me. In my paper, where we are asking for the adoption of the local growth strategy, I've outlined the various different engagement processes through different strategies that have informed the development of the local growth strategy. I've also captured the targeted engagement that has occurred. We've attached the summary of all of the engagements and the themes that came out of that, as well as how that has formed and shaped the local growth strategy, and then attached an updated version from the version that was presented in December that Brian presented. In that version, we've made some changes around the reform and the processes we'd have to go through to try unlock certain areas within the district, but also clearly stated where that intervenes or intercepts with the regional spatial plan. We have also included a few more actions around how we specifically engage with and work further to create some more detailed spatial planning in some of the priority growth areas. In terms of the local growth strategy, a lot of the work that and actions that are covered within it, a lot of that is BAU, and what you'll notice in the paper is that this isn't a statutory document. This document will help us inform and help us have those conversations when we are around the table with other councils and we are talking about the regional spatial plan process. It gives us a really good guidance in terms of how we direct that and what we can use to achieve the aspirations within the district. I'm happy now to take a few questions, and then I'll just...
Thank you. Thank you very much for your mahi. Any questions or clarification? Councillor O'Brien.
Kia ora, Dan. Firstly, I just want to say thank you from our team with my other port on over to Rūnanga Ngāti Awa, how well you've been communicating with them. I've got nothing but good feedback from them as to how well you and your team have been communicating with them, so thank you for that. My question is, how do you define whenua Māori? Is it, I'll help you with this, is it Māori land owned by Māori under Māori title? Is it Māori land owned by Māori under both Māori and general title?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit. Essentially, it's both, because there's also former Māori freehold land that's, for whatever reason, has been general title. It gets defined differently under different legislation, but we tend to follow the 1993 to the Whenua Act. Yeah, so both, essentially.
All right, thank you for that.
But it changes depending on the different legislation, right? So it's...
I was waiting for the button.
Just to add to that, some of the through the regional spatial planning and the new national direction, there will be stipulated zones and which we're waiting for, which haven't been released yet, and there will be Māori zoning that comes out of that, which actually helps facilitate achieving some of the aspirations on their land. So.
Yes, I guess thank you for that. I am encouraged by, I make reference to page 79, your growth action. And it says that, so I know that you're inhibited by, currently, as I always harp on about the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land, and that inhibits, growth, housing growth within our areas within the Rangitahi Place. But I am encouraged by reading this, that review the effectiveness of planning provisions affecting whenua Māori through future land use planning while focusing on removing unessential regulatory barriers and recognising there are many constraints set outside the planning system. So am I to interpret that we're going to find a way around the HPL to accommodate housing within the rangitaki or within those spaces?
It is directing us to look into ways to do that. I mentioned the NES for Papakanga, and in that I think you can have, is it 10 Papakanga per lot, which is quite a big change already, and then we need to go away and figure out how, as a council, we can facilitate some of those changes that are coming through the national direction.
Thank you. Just outside of Papakanga and keeping it into general land is the part that is hurting us. But David's very familiar with that, so thank you. Thank you for that.
Just to add to that, what the strategy has also helped us do is provide support to some of the social housing providers. They had to demonstrate, for example, for the flexi funding applications, that it aligns with council strategies, and it was quite easy for us to say, yes, it does, for these reasons, helps us to achieve these. And so the strategy in itself and its adoption does go further than just what we will be doing through the regional spatial plan, but also facilitating and helping others achieve and deliver housing.
Great work. It's a great strategy. Thank you.
Any further questions or clarification? Councillor Hamill.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good strategy to read. I've just had a couple of little points. I really enjoyed the guiding principles. I think they're foundational, awesome. Page 75, I think it is. Perhaps more of a question for Paul. Could you just unpack those innovative financing mechanisms, I'm not quite familiar with those. Innovative financing mechanisms to deliver enabling infrastructure works.
It will most likely refer to things like how we use the new development levy legislation. It can also include the potential application of the infrastructure funding and financing levies. Value capture is another option, which traditionally hasn't been used in the New Zealand context very much, but is an option particularly in new growth areas that we can look into.
Okay.
And that basically means is looking at actually where there's rezoning that uplifts the value of the land, of actually capturing that value through the rating mechanism.
Okay.
So it's not directly allowed for under the current Local Government Act, but there are ways that you can actually still pick up some of that value. So it's that sort of thing. So there are a number of tools there that we can look at for a different way of funding growth. But I think, how I would summarise it would be to say that the options look to take away move us more to a growth pace for growth opportunities. That never works fully, but it can actually work better than under certain mechanisms.
A supplementary, if I may. So there's a lot of actions near to medium to long term. If we don't increase our staffing, because we're very mindful of our operational costs, and some of these are dependent on increased capacity, will some of these actions just be paused, shelved, depending on what they are?
Yes, I think there will be, but also we'll go where the opportunities arise. So even with that, it says it's an aspirational goal looking at different ways of funding, but if there's opportunity for regional deals, I think we would shift some of our attention onto that. We're working really hard to tie everybody in across the council as well, so it's not just myself or Nicholas and Stephen working on these. And we've created effectively our governance group to help try deliver these in the sequencing, so we can have those conversations about, does this need to go on hold so that we can deliver that, and does it make sense, and when does it make sense to do these? So, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Amick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello again. I've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind. I'm just looking at page 58 at the moment of the strategy, and it's been a really good and interesting read. Thank you. Our population growth at 12%, essentially, while it is quite a bit smaller than a lot of the others, I think probably indirectly it's added to our favour that we've had less rapid growth than perhaps some other communities, because it's given us this time for preparation and to accommodate a lot of the reform that's coming in. So I know we've kind of been criticised in the past about not growing fast enough. I think it's actually a good thing. My question actually relates to page 60, where our GDP average growth rate is actually seems significantly less, and that's the kind of a thing that we need to be working on. So when we're talking to developers going forward, knowing that the development levies might increase, can we see there's going to be a relation to us being able to uplift our GDP output? Or we're not just relying on the developers for the growth?
GDP through stats NZ, thank you Councillor for that question. GDP through stats NZ, and who else does it? Infometrics does it, is heavily weighted towards population growth and population that is employed. And then there are other factors wrapped around it. So where you see population growth of people who are employed, and you know, if we have participation rates around about 2/3, 66% around about-ish, then you'll see probably a corresponding GDP increase there. However, having said that, it's not purely determined by population. There are other, it's quite a complex matrix in calculating GDP, and each year it gets more complex, and they factor in other things that can impact the productivity of a region or a city or whoever it might be. So there is a correlation between population growth of working aged people who are employed and GDP.
Yes.
Through the chair, may I just add, in terms of the strategy and how we're analysing those trends and then trying to respond to them, just on the first point, in a way I would agree with your comment, but I would add in that in the last 20 years growth has been slower than some comparable districts and regions, and in some ways that's been an advantage. But I think what has come through really clearly in development of the strategy is that in order to then make the most of the opportunities we have, we really need to be ready to actually grow from here on. And that's probably the issue that's emerged most strongly, is we don't have the land ready to go. We don't have the mechanisms and tools available to us to really capitalise on that. The second point around the connection, as Steve's mentioned, the strategy tries to work really closely on addressing not just housing growth, but commercial development, job creation, and so on. And so as part of that, you'd see in some of the details actions, we are working really closely with making sure that commercial zoning is easier, and that our businesses around not just the township but the whole district find it easier to be productive and generate that GDP growth.
All right, thank you. I didn't really explain that very well. It was more like, once we have the land available and the developers and the housing, whatever type of housing it is, that development spend will increase GDP, and when the residents come, that whole GDP cycle will be increased. So I didn't really explain that very well. Were you going to say something?
Just anecdotally, since I've joined, which is since December, and being in this role in the strategy, what it's meant is that we have been able to get people in a room. We have been able to talk to developers. We've been helping proposals for solar farms, etc., and looking at the best ways to get that unlocked. And so, while the strategy is great in framing, also one of the things it does is introduce my role. So I'm thankful for that, but it has meant that we've been engaging really early on with some of those developers, because it's not just the land. and it's not just what comes through the reform, but it's also then creating those relationships.
Thank you. I did have another couple of questions,
Are there
but I'm happy
questions?
to wait. I'm happy to wait, yes.
Yes. Mayor Nandor.
Thank you. It's just, I've always been dubious about GDP as a measure of economic well-being, and, you know, reminded that Simon Kuznets himself, who invented the measure, warned against the overuse of that. And I know that we've had some presentations to council around other ways of measuring economic activity. And I'm just wondering if we're making any moves towards adopting more useful measures of economic activity.
Can I respond to that one?
Yes.
Absolutely, and it's something that we have been really aware of. In terms of the way this strategy is presented, the GDP figures are simply retrospective, looking at some of the trends that have informed where we are now. But noting your point, absolutely, there are better measures, and in fact, some of our colleagues in Tairāwhiti are looking at some really innovative ways to do that, how to quantify value in a way that goes well beyond kind of GDP productivity. So it's something we're looking at, it's something we will try to build into all of the future work. But in terms of the foundation of this strategy, GDP is kind of the best that we've got.
That's great to hear.
Councillor Emick, did you want to continue? Councillor Whittaker, did you have questions also? No. Councillor Emick, would you
All
like
right,
to
thank
continue?
you. I'm on page 64 at the moment, and really pleased to see that Kopiopio has been, well included and covered in this section. The couple of quick questions I had was, does council own any properties along the shopping precinct in Kopiopio?
I don't think so. But what I would say is, and I can come back to you on that to confirm, some of council's partners do. And so we're working quite closely with, just some of our partners, Kaingora, Ngatiawa, and so on. So there are opportunities there to kind of be involved in what happens in that area.
All right, thank you. And my second question is, I see that it says it's a priority area for more infill and intensification, and aside from some of the empty sections that we know have had plans for more intensification, the infill part, I was wondering how much space do we actually have for infill? And the reason I asked that is I saw a map of the water tableland, and there's parts of Kopiopua that actually pond quite badly on different sections. That would all get taken into consideration when people are applying for that sort of stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah, there are some overland flow paths in the area. So that does come into consideration in the consenting phase for how construction occurs. May also influence things like future stormwater projects to look at trying to address those. So there's various means of various mechanisms. Also, built platform levels and what goes on. You might have parking in areas that are, say, more flood prone. Have cars there rather than bedrooms, if you know what I mean. And then have the elevated parts if you're having that more intensive development.
Yeah, just a supplementary. So we're looking like a 10 to 15% infill possibility, or we're looking at greater than that? Because there's lots to chat about people wanting to subdivide their properties.
Yep, I agree, and I think that's something we'll go away and look at in terms of the potential out there, because it would also come down to infrastructure capability and the cost of that. I think if I just refer you to page 83, you see the map of the city centre to Kopiopio, and we've mapped that in an indicative area which has fewer and lower risks, essentially. So while this document outlines that, it would still have to go through all the other processes to make it easier for more infill in that area.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Hamill.
Thank you. I'm on page 95, and Action 3, establish an ongoing housing leadership forum. just wondered how that looked with leadership from the council. We've obviously had lots of feedback from our community, and Councillor Boynton and I attended the Whare Community Hui a few weeks ago. So just wondering what role council plays in leading that discussion, and perhaps also via the Mayor.
Just in terms of the Housing Leadership Forum, that's something that we still need to set up. We have had a developers forum, which there were a few sessions last year with them, but that's something slightly different from the housing. But we have been working with Frank's team around some of the reporting they're doing in terms of housing requirements, homelessness and everything. So
okay, so this is a separate sort of conversation about housing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And just the next page, in the similar vein, Action 9, actively attracting investment to grow retirement communities across our affordability spectrum. Have we had discussions with developers or current providers at this stage?
Yes, we have. I think part of the actions is the work that we're going to be doing on our growth story, and that'll leverage off the sub-regional brand work that's been done. And so I think we are getting there. We have spoken to a few developers. We have spent some time with Veros up in Tauranga to look at how affordable or attractive certain types of housing would be, and I think that conversation has started, but it's definitely something through our community sessions, the Awakeri sessions, that we hear a lot. As well as our meeting with all the trusts over the Whenua Māori down by Golf Links Road, and so it's a very live, active conversation, yes.
Yeah, I would tautoko that, because I think probably as councillors we are hearing that every week from our constituents that we need to really progress that piece of work.
May I just, through the chair, just respond and an observation? So this strategy, in common with some of our others, so the Eastern Bay Spatial Plan, even our LTP, our climate pathway, has a huge number of actions that sort of sit underneath the principles and the objectives. So I think the climate pathway had 223, for example. And I think when we present these, we're looking to do these things, but they won't all happen in the next 12 to 24 months. And there's a sort of balance around, we have to, as Dan mentioned, be flexible and seize opportunities as they come. But these are intentions that we would like to be able, and that's why we've categorised them into the sort of immediate, some minor enablings and so on. So you can expect to see some, but possibly not all of the immediates immediately, if you know what I mean.
Any further questions or clarification? Councillor Wachika, and then Councillor Mick. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. My question relates to page 94, and it's to do with the graphs there. So it talks about the neat rate. Is that cover the time period of 23 to 53? The graphs on the right, they don't.
No, that's the current neat rate. It's not forecasted out to 2053.
Because when I look at the sort of the rate of 15 to 24-year-olds sort of unemployed, educated or not in training, 24.8% looks a bit dramatic to me. And I'm wondering, I know it's only a plan, but whether we feed that back to the education departments in the district, like the schools and the wānanga, etc., to put an emphasis on where they could address this possibly?
Yep, yes, and there are specific actions around engaging with the wānanga and the schools. So yes, I think it is when you do look at it, it does paint a quite alarming picture. And so I think the growth strategy extends beyond just providing housing and pipes in the ground. It starts focusing on those really social and community issues that we need to address as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll just actually ask if it's okay if Councillor Dennis can go before. I had missed him previously.
I don't mind.
Thank you.
Hey, I've got two questions, please. On page 44, under 7.3, where it talks about, 44, protection of, the first bullet point under 7.3 talks about production of highly productive land and culturally significant landscapes. So I appreciate that that's what came in from the engagement. What have we done to do that in the light of the fact that people are building solar farms over all the really good productive land? Is this strategy going to be able to say, excuse me, we'd rather have you build that over your supermarket car parks rather than your productive land?
So short answer, no, because it's non-statutory, but it can help us with those conversations when it gets to the regional spatial plan process, the land use plan that will come out of the back of that. So,
just that we seem to be losing a lot of productive land at the moment.
Yep.
So this is non-statutory. So if someone has a private deal to sell a farm to a solar farm people, we won't know till it's after it's been sold and the deal's been done. Okay, all good. Just one other on page 67 and 69. When we first started talking sewage and growth in Matata, we talked about 1,500 houses, and there was a bit of a shock from the community because they thought it would go up within the next 2 weeks. And so we've realigned in the message to saying 400 to 450 people growth in Matata over a number of years. In here, you're talking 600 to 700. Are we giving mixed messages and confusing people?
No, we're not. One of those numbers is the additional. One of them is the total. So at the moment there's around 260 homes in Matata.
Yep.
Within the existing residential zone, we expect it could accommodate up to 600 to 700 homes in total. So that 450 refers to an addition to that 260.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Mick.
Thank you. Mine is just in regard to supporting iwi housing developments. So, and in particular with Murupara and Minganui, and we know that they do have plans for Minganui to kind of revitalise their little township village and Murupara some housing. The condition of some of those homes that are up there are not great, and if they're going to be building new homes, are we going to create a whole lot of like ghost homes as a little bit of a tail, or will it be an and? They will bowl some and build new on top. You might not be able to answer that. I'm just thinking if people if iwi and Hapu are asking us for feedback about it and getting guidance from the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, the short answer is we're not sure how it's going to, what it's going to look like. I would emphasise that, in Minganui, it is owned by a trust. There's an underlying trust that owns almost all the homes there. So it would be how they, how they unfurl that development, and our position really would be to support them in their aspirations. So whether that results in empty homes, I'm not sure at this stage, but we'd obviously want to work with them to see their aspirations fulfilled, but also to assist where we can in terms of a good outcome in housing up there.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add to that? I think also what the strategy is aiming to do is give us some clear direction when we go into those conversations about land use. And so while that is something that may be a concern, it also, what we're hoping to do is remove some of the barriers for the rest of the land that's out there, and then also do some proactive planning where we can around how we support the new homes. I don't think it necessarily answers the question directly, but it means that there's less restrictions, or it's less onerous when people want to build new homes.
Thank you. Yes, Amir Nandor.
Thank you. I was going to save this for the debate, but there is actually a question at the end of it. So, with your indulgence, Madam Chair, I was going to say, first of all, I think this is a really great piece of work. I think it's really well thought through. It's really intelligent. I like the way that the report captures what was said and then links it through to what's come out of that. So we can see, and people, our communities can see how they're reflected in this document. I think it's holistic and integrated. I just think it's a really great piece of work. I'm interested, Paul, in your comments around value capture and how that conversation continues, because I think that's a really important issue for us. And I really like the principles that guide it and how it's kind of unfolded. So my question is, so on page 99 of the report, page 50 of the document, it says our implementation plan and next steps are set out in the diagram at the end of the document. I couldn't see the diagram at the end of the document, and my what I'm interested in is how does this now flow? So this is great. I think it's really useful for informing all of our work really as a council. Kind of where do we go from here, and in particular in our organisation, how do we hold all of this and as we roll out our business as usual and start to integrate this into how we operate? What's the kind of process for that?
Well spotted, and that was an appendix to this that should have been there. What we've done is we've set up through our new Aratikino, our enterprise project management processes program steering group, to set some firm boundaries around governance and delivery of or implementation of the strategy. Within that, we're using all the wonderful tools that we've got within the organisation, One Plan, and that will link directly into the work that's happening under the long-term plan. There's got to be inputs from all of the teams involved when it comes to the long-term plan and alignment with the strategies that we have, because this is one of few. We will then report up to ELT and bring regular updates to this committee as well. Beyond that, we're working with and sitting down, and I hassle Paul and I hassle Nick around things like infrastructure and how we're going to pay for it, and work with across the organisation with all the different managers. And I think that it's been really great to be able to piece that together, plus then having those developers come in and talking to us around their aspirations, how we do that. And so there's also, again, there's a lot, and I think it just provides that framework so that we're all looking in the same direction. And then we can show how that then gets incorporated through all the other bits of work that we're doing through the regional spatial plan, and it also directs us very clearly on how we're going to work more closely to define the aspirations of iwi as well, and so that might then produce different types of agreements in place with them, which I think is really exciting.
It's really great to see, that alignment from we just had the report about the regional plan and just seeing it flow away through the sub-region and through to this local growth. Yeah, it's really great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Just before I call for a mover and a seconder, I also do want to reiterate what my colleagues have said in terms of the mahi that's been put forward. We have seen this local growth strategy begin from its very infancy, and to seeing what's been produced today, and also the care and participation from engaging with our community across the rohe, has been well thought out and executed. So I really want to commend. I also wanted to highlight page 94, just to see how our wahine are projected to be the main, over 50% of the population. It's great to see that as we engage with our different stakeholders and that the amount of wahine, including the ones around the table, who are also engaged as leaders in different sectors that will be supporting this local growth strategy. Also too, highlighting page 97, the matapono, which was mentioned also by Councillor O'Brien, and it's really great to see those principles there, not only just being put onto a page, but seeing what those actions have achieved throughout the plan. So I call for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Hamill moves, Councillor James seconds. All those in, I should read it out, sorry. That the Strategy and Policy Committee receives a report of the adoption of the local growth strategy, and 2, that the Strategy and Policy Committee adopts the Whakatane District Local Growth Strategy, and 3, that the Strategy and Policy Committee notes that the implementation will proceed through existing statutory planning and investment processes with ongoing council and executive. Any debate? Put forward the motion. All those in favour, say aye. Any against? Any abstained? Motion is passed. Thank you. Moving on next to the Awakeri Structure Plan project update.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Stephen. Yes, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, katoa. Through the chair, I'd like to provide an update on the Awakeri Structure Plan project. I'll begin with a brief overview and just move into some of the main points. As discussed earlier by my colleagues Nicholas and Daniel, the Eastern Bay Plenty Spatial Plan and local growth strategy have been developed to help the council unlock development capacity, including residential and business land. The Awakeri Structure Plan is the next step in that process. So the structure plan will translate those higher level strategies into a concept level spatial framework, providing additional detail around how growth can occur, how it might be coordinated and integrated with infrastructure and sequencing. So the purpose of today's update is to keep the committee informed of the project and its progress. It's now moving into, well, it has been, for a while, in its delivery phase, and to update on the processes moving forward and to make sure that we get it right. At this stage, we're not seeking any other decisions on land use change or rezoning, just to update on strategic alignment, how those project goals are being translated into the work underway, and how we're approaching the development of the structure plan through technical work, through the design and the engagement that's being undertaken. So the progress to date, the team convened in 2026 and undertook a site analysis and technical testing phase. We've been working close with a number of external consultants and have a project delivery team in place. We have technical experts and specialists in the stormwater and natural-based solutions, ecology, geotechnical, transport and movement, and also ITSMIS, who is a nationally recognised consultancy in the urban design space. The project team has been working collaboratively to interpret the analysis of that testing and progressively build an integrated spatial response. The analysis has helped us informed early spatial thinking and significantly enable an integrated understanding between these work streams of constraints, opportunities in the environment field, the physical field, and also from an infrastructure context as well. A key focus of the project has been bringing the community along for the journey, enhancing ecological outcomes, particularly within the waterways, integrating a blue-green infrastructure using nature-based solutions and recognising the importance of the Awakeri landscape, and that's one that's dominated by water. So the intent has always been to work with water and not against it, and explore ways of the project being a water positive solution. We identified early that the community was going to come along on this journey with us. A community reference group was created with the help of Council's communications and engagement team. We advertised to the community, to the wider community, and invited expressions of interest. The first community reference group was held in April of this year, and it focused on how participants saw Awakeri evolving over the next 50 years. It provided a range of perspectives and very valuable insights. Every member who came had an opportunity to address the floor, and some really good and valuable information was taken away from that. Following that, a design charrette for the project delivery team was scheduled for the very following day, and that was done on purpose so we could capture that community sentiment, and that could also inform that technical assessment analysis into those early design stages. Community reference group met again on the 20th of May, and we'll have a third and final meeting on the 24th of June. We've also been engaging with Mana Whenua. In addition to the community reference group, the project management team has undertaken early discussions with Ngāti Awa through Council's Toikatui team, and we've received guidance from Ngāti Awa on the appropriate hapu to continue more detailed discussions with. Since then, Council has had meetings with Ngāi Tawhikaia, Ngāti Pukeko and Rangataiki Hapu Collective. And we've received some initial whakaaro, and engagement will continue over the coming weeks as Kaumatua and Hapu representatives consider the project in more depth and detail. We raised some questions with the Hapu in order to stimulate how that feedback might be considered. We asked for consideration of historic state of the plains and how the various hapu remember the historical state being, traditional land use and hydrology, and also how these values might be recognised and reflected in future planning. So that's where we are at the moment. Next steps. Looking ahead, we have a second and final design charrette organised for mid-June, and that will inform a concept to be taken to the third and final community reference group. We look forward to continuing our discussions with Mana Whenua, and the project program is aiming to develop a draft concept level structure plan supported by inputs and modelling, and present this to Council around July, August. So subject to Council direction, this could proceed to wider public engagement with a view to returning to Council later in the year with feedback and refinements. So through the Chair, the key point of the update is that the project is moving into its, or has moved into its active design and delivery phase. We now have technical inputs, community participation and insight, and Mana Whenua engagement is underway, and we're well and truly into the design and technical modelling stage. So thank you for that, and I'm now able to take some questions.
Thank you for that, Stephen. That's a really great update. It sounds really exciting, and also too with the feedback that you've provided about the reference group. So it's great to hear this seems to be coming to life. I'll open up for your questions and clarification. Councillor Hamill.
Thank you, Stephen, for giving us this report. And it sounds like there's been really good engagement with the community on this one, so it's a good way to demonstrate us working closely with the community. I just had a question really, have there been any negative response from community about proposed growth in Awakeri?
Absolutely, yes. The community has tested council's rationale on a number of issues. Some of those around the state of the waterways and how drainage might exacerbate existing problems. Also, the increase in residents in the area and what this might impact, or how this might impact, on, say, the education facility in Awakeri, and whether we plan to identify land for future facilities. I think importantly, some of that feedback, perhaps even though it was, it may have come across as objections, I think was probably born out of not really having a visual idea of what the structure plan might look like. And although working through this process with the community, and now as of our last meeting, we were able to put some images in front of the community, and they could see how their feedback was actually guiding the design in certain areas. This has helped alleviate some of that concern, but to their credit, the community has still kept us very honest and is challenging us on a number of issues, and we need, I mean, that's good. We need to make sure that what we're planning in the area is, excuse the pun, watertight, and that we're putting our best foot forward.
Thank you for that.
I think we all want to respond to that. Can we just each take a little moment? All I was going to say is, and I think it's in the paper, I attended the last community reference group and I found it absolutely fascinating, the range of concerns, but also excitement and the enthusiasm that I could see. I know Councillor Dennis and Councillor James, I think, have attended. There are two more community reference groups planned, one more, sorry, and I think I'm fair to say that any councillor who wishes to attend those is more than welcome, and it might be a really valuable experience. But over to you.
Just to add, I was just going to say, attending the last one, the conversations are really, really good and informative, and I think it's, we all sat at different tables and presented different things, and I was talking about different housing options, and there was a lot of positive feedback at the table I was at over the whole night. A lot of people come in and they're a little bit uneasy, but then as you get to talking to them about the opportunities, but also it not necessarily affecting their way of life, that they really have been engaging really well and talking. We've learned a lot through those sessions around what the site's like, what happens in the area, where it floods, where our flood modelling hasn't picked it up. So the process has been really, really good. And I popped up the map for, this was what was presented. Sorry, there's a lot of detail, but that was what was presented in the last session with the community. And I think just being able to see it and talk about the natural flow of the water and connectivity through the area, which is one theme that's come up a lot, is how we could look at improving connectivity from either side of the state highways. And I think there's some challenges, but it's really great to hear from the community.
Can I ask a quick supplementary about the potentially, I think you mentioned in the report that you're planning to engage with Kiwi Rail. What sort of role do you think that could play in the future? Transport options?
Transport options, but also through the regional spatial plan process, you have to retain all designations for railways, and so we've been directed from a national point of view down to look after those for potential future use. Yes.
Councillor Emmett.
Thank you, and some more great work, thanks. If you had an entrepreneurial local landowner who is aware of everything happening and they wanted to subdivide their own subdivision, while this is just a local potential plan for future development, would they be given the green light, or would they have to jump through lots of hoops or be held back?
once this is tested through the formal process and is adopted and results in a change in the district plan, then there will still be the process, the standard consent subdivision process for that. The changes that we may see through the implementation of the regional spatial plan and the land use plan, which will come over the next few years, will definitely remove some of the barriers that we currently have under the RMA.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor O'Brien and then Mayor Nandor.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just a question for you, Steve, and the team. And I commend you on talking to the local hapu, Tai Whakaia Pūkeko and Tarangitaki Hapu Coalition. My question is, have you talked to the local land trusts? Because they are very financial and they have some huge landownings surrounding that area. That's Otu Pōkai, Omatoro Tēnei, Rangitaiki number 2, and Kiwinui and Ratahi. Have you been talking to those trusts?
Yes. The short answer to that question is yes. Conversations have been have taken place. We were approached by one of the land trusts, Kiwinui, during the spatial plan stage of the development, and there was an expression of interest to include a block of land that sat under their ownership in the thinking. Where I guess we're challenged now as to how we integrate the intent of the structure plan is to look at the short, medium, and long term to 2055. So that's a 30-year period. That's not to say that nothing can happen in that period, but we'd like to, understand further what might be undertaken on that land and how we could integrate that with the Awakeri study area. But certainly there has been discussions on how that land can be incorporated in future planning.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Nandor.
Thank you. It's just a supplementary on Councillor Emming's question, actually, which was around if there was a current landowner who wanted to kind of leap into this, how they'd be inhibited, and the answer was around once there's been a rezone, a change in the district plan, that they would just subdivide as usual. But of course the difficulty is that that's quite some time away and there's a freeze on plan changes, if I remember correctly, and so unless this got into some kind of fast track process or something that sped it up, any current landowner is quite a long way away from being able to subdivide, isn't that right?
There's a few options. There's not just one way of doing things. So one option is through a fast track process, which they could undertake now. Through the regional spatial plan that's coming up, there might be some mechanisms in that actually mean it could happen quite quickly without going through sort of a traditional plan change process. Of course, there's also the challenge around infrastructure and having the right infrastructure in place, and that's likely to be the limiting factor, so trying to get that in place as soon as possible so that we can service any development in that area, and that's a really important part of this project, is working out what's the area we need to serve and start to service and start to do the planning for that as well. But yeah.
Could I just add a bit to that, please?
Yep.
Through the chair, I would like to add that the messaging that we've tried to get to the landowners is that the structure plan is an area that will work if it's considered in a holistic fashion. Individual landowners, although there are some large lots in there, may not necessarily help achieve the targets that the local growth strategy, regional sub-regional spatial plan, and the structure plan are trying to achieve if we consider isolated lots on their own. So perhaps there is an opportunity for a fast track planning application to take place in the future, but we would hope that those landowners are cognizant of the role that particular land plays in a wider plan, and how integration is key between the various land holdings to achieve wider community success.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's important. Just supplementary to your earlier answer, Nick, was around, so the importance of those transport and infrastructure to be able to enable this unlocking of development. And I know during the sub-regional spatial plan, there was a lot of engagement with Crown agencies. So just wondering, and it may be, have been addressed in the report, my apologies, in terms of the Crown understanding what's being considered here and kind of wanting to be part of it, are those, what conversations are taking place?
Yeah, so when I say infrastructure, there's the transport, the NZTA upgrades, water and wastewater and the stormwater is the big one. We have engaged with Awakeri around the planning for that, so we met with them really recently. And so we'll continue to work with them to align our planning. But there may also be some development that we could do without substantial upgrades to the state highway network. So we are doing that as part of the transport modelling to look at, well, how much could you do before you do that? But you still need a water solution, a wastewater solution, those things. So, we're looking long term, but there might be some initial stuff that we get actually to kickstart things as well.
Thank you. Again, supplementary, if I may. So we have to solve the water wastewater problems, and maybe we're looking at a CCO. In terms of the conversations with NZTA, is that something that should come through the Regional Transport Committee? And are we putting stuff into? I should know. I'm sit on that committee, but are we putting stuff into there for that committee to consider?
Yeah, I think ultimately it will need to go through there. We're having discussions with staff, sort of our equivalents at Awakeri at the moment, to look at, we commence those discussions. Ultimately, it will need to end up in that Land Transport Committee, but also through the Regional Spatial Plan and the Spatial Planning Committee. That will be something else that will need to be addressed in there. And actually, it speaks to the power of the spatial plan in that these other plans will have to essentially implement what the spatial plan's saying and the staging of that. So, I think either way, we're still engaging with the Awakeri and working out how these things are staged. There's a few plans that it will need to go into.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. I attended both meetings, and in the first meeting I was impressed by all the different tables, and I went reverse to the way the people were going. No matter whether you're at the transport table or whether you're on the water table or whatever table it was, because they all had different subjects, everyone talked about the water issues, the flooding, etc. And I noticed at the last meeting, because of your map that you had up there, and through each stream you had that ponding, swell and shrink areas, there wasn't that, like, people were still interested, but it seemed to alleviate them. So what I want from you is there is an assurance that in a heavy rainwater event, that stream that goes right through the middle, would that be contained, all the extra water be contained by those shrink and swell basins within the stream?
So to address that, the design thought at this point in time, and I believe you're talking to the Mangaroa stream, is that the Mangaroa stream does overtop at times, and there's some design or flow issues that could present design opportunities. We have entered into some discussions with Regional Council now about some aspirational ideas or design ideas for these waterways. We, I guess, have been told that we need to consider their primary purpose, and that is to drain. But we have also been given some assurances through our hydraulic engineers, our stormwater engineers, that there is there is capacity to locate storage. So where I believe we're at now is modelling. Now that we've had this discussion with regional and we understand the sort of the 72-hour holding period and the discharge targets, there is now a period of consideration around what that modelling might look like. We need to also consider that there are other watercourses that can be used for discharge. So there are different catchments within the catchment.
Yeah.
So I believe we will be able to come up with some form of design, and we will need to be able to design it to the 1 in 100 year event, and I would be hoping that we can exceed expectations in that respect as well.
Thank you, Stephen. And I believe, Dan, you also
Yes.
wanted to respond?
Thank you, through the chair. I think the benefit of this work and the work that we're doing through all of the papers that you see today is that when we started talking about the modelling and stormwater and the discharge and the ponding, we're taking a whole of catchment view. The worst thing that we could potentially do is open up an area, rezone it, and then as soon as somebody wants to put a house down, they don't get a consent because they're going to increase flooding downstream. So what we've done is we've started talking to regional council about their flooding, their flood modelling. We're going to update our modelling based on that, but we're also going to look at the design of those areas where the housing would go, so that we don't then limit ourselves in the future. And so that it was a topic that came up a lot, but once we started to show the concept of it, but also the ability to then improve the value of housing when you think about stormwater reserves, and if they're well maintained and they're planted up well, it actually increases the value of the housing. And so it's the idea with water sensitive design and what we've been building into this is that it will then deal with the overland flow, all the additional stormwater, and there's discussions about how big that piece of land needs to be set aside to take that on. And so there's a bit of trying to crystal ball gaze around the number of houses we can put there, and then what that means in terms of hard stand areas, what that means in terms of runoff. Okay, how much area do we then need to put aside through this process to capture all of that runoff? Because if we end up in a place where this is rezoned, but then we can't put houses there because of flooding, then we've failed through the process.
I guess if I could just add a supplementary thought to that. If I could sort of return to one of the goals of the project, which was to work with water and not against it. The concept that we will not remove water from the environment, therefore let's plan for it. We will need water in the environment to make the design work. So those central water courses, or that particular central water course, becomes quite important to the design. And some of the other conversations that came up through the community consultation process or the community reference process was how to integrate that water course and its margins into wider community use. So during periods of lower rainfall, it has a recreational use. During periods with higher rainfall, where it might need additional storage, that can happen in that area as well, or in that environment, and the area then takes on a supplementary use or a duplicate use as a temporary water storage.
Thank you. Just a supplementary, Madam Chair. Coming from Matata, this is obviously a bit personal for me, flooding in community areas, but one of the problems in the streams in Matata, the Awakeri especially, and then the Waitapuru, they have massive hinterland valleys up in the hills which help feed the runoff, etc. Do you have and obviously Whakatane River has a big hinterland too. That Awakeri stream just comes out of the hill from behind it. How big is the hinterland valley up there that feeds that stream, or does it not have much runoff feeding that stream as to limit how much comes down?
I would have to say that I can't give you an accurate response to that. I do know that Woods, who are the consultants undertaking the hydrological assessment, has considered the Mangaroa stream and its catchment in its entirety. They've been able to map that through existing hydraulic areas and geographical zones. So I believe the headwaters are in the Latham's Hill area. But if further information was required on that, I could come back to the committee.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you. I just wanted to check with Councillor James as the one of the Ranataiki councillors if you had any further questions.
I haven't got any other questions and that. It's good to see the project moving forward, and there are some issues about the water and that, but I don't think they're insurmountable. And yeah, we just need to keep it moving and keep it moving reasonably quickly. So,
thank you.
And on that, I'd be happy to move the motion.
So Councillor James moves and seconder Councillor Imick seconds. Any debate? Mayor Nandor.
I'm on fire today.
You are.
Well, I was going to put it in front of my question, but I thought I'll behave this time. I just wanted to make a couple of brief comments. Again, I think this is a really great piece of work. It's really great to see the alignment. As I said before, it's really great to see this alignment going from the regional, sub-regional, local growth, and then this structure plan work. And I'm really aware that this came directly out of that sub-regional spatial plan, identifying where the potential areas for housing development were. And so we've actually, as an organisation, moved quite rapidly on the findings that came out of the spatial plan. And that's really great to see, because it means that as an organisation, we're quite nimble, we're moving quite quickly, we're taking this information and actually acting on it. So that's really great. I'm really happy to see the way that it's informed by local knowledge, because we can get stuff wrong. So just fact checking and ground truthing with local communities who know intimately what happens in their areas, and that we're actually responding. And again, for people in a community being able to see the issues that they've raised reflected in the documents we're producing, I think is really, really good. And then the other thing I was just going to comment on was this kind of approach of working with nature. And, particularly we've talked about water today, around kind of allowing water to do its thing, and then how do we work around that, and how do we perhaps shape it and influence it a bit. So, just wanted to say big ups to the crew.
Thank you. Any other debates or comments? I'd also like to put forward a comment, and just acknowledging again the mahi, and also following on from Mayor Nandor's comments. It has been great throughout this meeting to be able to see the whakapapa of the regional spatial plan to the local growth strategy, and also now going down to the Awakeri growth strategy as well. And I guess as an organisation, we're part of birthing that whakapapa. And so when we go from the grandparents to the parents and to the mokopuna, we want to be able to make sure that we have good support for the mokopuna projects to work, and that they have the right kind of relationships with our stakeholders, no matter what kind of winds are coming with changes to legislation. Because that could derail or cause some barriers for these projects to go along. It also sets us in good stead when we are looking at the changes that are coming ahead for possible joining of other councils, because it shows that we have strong projects to be able to put forward. We've done the mahi, we've got things activated, and we can see opportunities or utilise them as opportunities in whatever the new room is going to look like with these changes in the future. So I really wanted to commend all of the mahi that's been shown to us today. I did have some questions, but I think I've sort of answered them myself, and also through our councillors and mayor and deputy mayor here, and that was how are we going to deal with the changes that are coming, and how some of those statutory obligations will be changing as well, and how well we navigate that and the potential financial impact that may have, in particular property rights. How is that going to affect how we move forward with projects like this, and also too the impact on our iwi and their renegotiation of settlements, because entities they used to have may no longer be there. But I believe in all of that we're going to navigate ourselves forward. So I will put forward we have put forward the motion. We have a seconder, a mover and seconder. That I will call for the. Sorry, I'll read out the. That the Strategy and Policy Committee received the Awakeri Structure Plan Project Update Report. Done that. Put forward the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Any abstain? Motion passed. Thank you. That's our hui for today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our staff, as always, for their mahi. And I will close our hui with a karakia. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te ata whai o tō tātou ariki o ihu karaiti. Me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhina teitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake ake, āmini.